Okay, back for part 3, where we're going to start to discuss the factors that affect eyewitness testimony. So let's get into it. All right. First of all, there's what's called the optimality encoding hypothesis. This is saying that the confidence, accuracy, relationship will be at its highest level when encoding, storage, and retrieval conditions are optimal. So this is related to the information processing conditions, such as lighting at the time of the incident and the confidence of the witness. And this leads to a high level of stimulus encoding during memory storage and memory test, which is the retrieval. The 10 to 12 second rule, people who identify someone quickly tend to be more accurate than those who really take their time. And this is something that you'll see when we watch the video about Jennifer Thompson, was how much time she took to actually pore over the photos to make sure she got an accurate identification. Now, it's important that you think of this as a guideline only. We don't want people being accused of being inaccurate because they took longer, as that is not necessarily the case. The research conducted found that those who choose a person in 10 to 12 seconds were up to 90% accurate, while those who took more time were only 50% accurate, or even chose an innocent person. So these are the different types of factors. So estimator variables are those that happen at the time of the crime. So this is the situational factors that may affect the acquisition of the memory of the witness. So remember, we've talked about the lighting. If there's anything in the way of you seeing, like a pole. Does the offender have a weapon? If the weapon's being pointed at you, you're going to focus on that weapon and probably not look at their face so much. So this is the stuff that happens at the exact moment that the person is witnessing the event. System variables, on the other hand, are what happens when the person comes into contact with the criminal justice system, and it's about them trying to retrieve those memories. This is when the police officer asks you what you saw. And this is something that we can do something about. Estimator variables, as it says, are beyond the control of the criminal justice system. System variables are things that we can control and change if we need to. And this is things like training officers how and what to ask and deal with lineups properly. So it's quite important that you understand the difference between estimator and system variables. So here's some examples of what they might be. The stress experienced by the witness in seeing the event. Stress can make you less likely to remember detailed information about the incident. You're likely to remember things like gender and skin colour, but hair, eye and clothes colour may get lost. And remember, you saw that in the video with the students in the room where they described his jacket as being several different colours. The lighting conditions, field of view, I discussed that earlier. The presence of a weapon. So the weapon effect, if I point a gun at you, you're more likely to stare at the gun and not at me or not at the offender. The level of violence, was it, a low level of violence or a really high level of violence? And the period that the witness viewed the events or the frequency of it. So a hostage situation that is ongoing would give someone longer to encode information than a crime that happens really quickly. And system variables, how police interview, how they ask the questions. Do they have any suggestibility in the way that they ask the questions? Lineup instructions and the number of people in the lineup. So instructions given to the witness can help or hinder. How well others in the lineup, fillers, represent the suspect. So you need to have a group of people who look roughly the same and don't have one person who's 5'3" standing in a lineup of people who are over 6 foot and have them sticking out like a sore thumb. Okay, so it is the system variables are what we can control. The estimator variables we can't control. There is a little video that I found that's very clever for you to watch. Okay, now we're going to move on to lineup procedures and problems. So Most of you think that a lineup's pretty straightforward. You just put a group of people in a line and someone comes in, they stand behind the glass and they identify the person by a number. In the, going back into say the 50s and the 60s, if a woman had been raped and it came to her being in front of a lineup and having to identify the perpetrator, she would actually have to walk along the line in person in front of them. And if she saw the person involved, she had to touch him on the shoulder to identify him. You can understand why a lot of women would not want to go to the police and put themselves through that. We've come a long way since then, but we can always do better. So what are the problems with lineups? Well, have a look at this lineup. There's nobody there that really looks like anybody else. They're all very, very different. So the practices concerning lineups vary from country to country. In some countries, it's preferable to use physical lineups. Some are now have advanced to using photos only. The UK is particularly advanced in this area. So Penrod in 2003 did a study where he found that 20% where an offender was picked out was a lucky guess. And it estimated that up to 50% are making a choice of guessing. And anyone guessing is problematic. When the life of someone, you know, could be on the line, their freedom could be on the line. So these are what the problems are. There's 4, as you can see. Inadequately matched fillers. So this is the innocent fillers who are in the lineup to just make out the numbers, and they don't look anything like the suspect, so the suspect sticks out. So the fillers need to be similar to the suspect. Where this can become problematic is if you've got a suspected offender who's got half an ear missing or a visible scar on their face. I don't know whether they have access to some really good makeup artists to help here, but you need to have the fillers not sticking out. Physical or bias, oddball. So the photo lineup where the suspect's picture is notably different. So it could be their hair or a scar or different clothes. Like I said, what if they're missing an ear? So the suspect looking noticeably different from the others. No double-blind procedure. So in the double-blind procedure, the officer conducting the identity parade does not know if the suspect is there or who that suspect is. So if the officer knows, they may inadvertently give it away by their body language or say something. They could twitch, wink, something. They could just give it away without even realising that they've actually done it. If they don't know who it is, then you've got a better chance of the person doing a genuine selection. And unconscious transference, as we spoke before about Donald Thompson, where he was seen on TV right before a lady was raped and she unconsciously transferred his face onto the rapist. So that's what unconscious transference is. So that's the problems with lineups. All right, we're going to have a go and show you what some of the problems can be. So there was a crime committed. The 2 eyewitnesses described the offender this way. Late teens, 15 to 16 years old, no more than 18. African-American black male, small build, about 59 kilos in weight, between 5'2" and 5'5", had long hair in some kind of braids, single row braids that were coming loose. So I'm going to show you now a group of 6 offenders, and I want you to tell me who you think, or pick out the one that you think this is describing. Okay, so hopefully you have all picked number 1 in the top left-hand corner. And the problem with the lineup is, well, he looks young. Some of the others, such as this fella here, he looks a lot older than the age we were given, which was 15, 16, no more than 18. He looks a lot older than 18. He looks a lot older than 15, 16. He could be young, much older. He could be young. But this guy here is the only one who's got the braids coming loose. So therefore, the lineup is not presenting fillers that are similar to the suspect. And again, one Hispanic witness gave the following description. thin Hispanic man with a moustache, collar-length hair. So who do you think the offender is? Okay, so I'm hoping you've all picked this one in the bottom left-hand corner because he is thin, he has a moustache and collar-length hair. Now you could say that this guy's got collar-length hair and a moustache as well, because they both seem to have more facial hair than just a moustache, but he's quite chubby in the face and to me he doesn't look Hispanic. Could be just the quality of the photo. But none of the rest of them have got collar-length hair and varying degrees of facial hair. So again, the problem is that if that's what the witnesses said they're looking for, then they're probably just going to pick this guy here, whether he's the one or not. So we need to do something to fix up about fillers. All right, I'm going to show you a photo now of Ronald Cotton and Bobby Poole. Okay, I've stretched that a bit and it doesn't look real good stretched, so I'll put it back into where it was. That's a bit better. Okay, so you can see that Ronald and Bobby look very, very similar, and you could probably understand how Jennifer could have mucked it up and gotten it wrong. Their faces aren't that fat, that's still stretched a bit. Maybe I need to come in this way. That's a bit better. Okay, so that's what they look like. Very, very similar. Keeping in mind that she was being raped, if it was dark and she's got a dark man with a dark skinned man, it's going to be very, very difficult to pick out a lot of the features when they look so similar. So once the face of Ronald was in her brain and in her memory, it was very, very difficult to shift it. Even when she was in a courtroom and Bobby was there in the courtroom, she still said, no, it was Ronald. Okay. All right, relative judgment theory. So this means that the person picks someone most similar. So it doesn't mean that the culprit is actually in the lineup, but the person might assume that the offender is in the lineup. If you're looking at a lineup, well, then you must have somebody there that I've got to pick out. So think about Ronald. Why did she choose him and not Bobby? Well, when Jennifer did the lineup, Ronald was there and Bobby was not. She assumed that the offender was in the lineup, so she chose the person closest to her memory. Okay, that is relative judgment theory. So the eyewitnesses acts as if the culprit is present and forms a judgment. So it is a relative judgment where they look at all in the lineup and compare them to each other and pick the one most likely to be the offender. And this is why Ronald was picked. He was the most likely candidate to be the offender. This is opposed to absolute judgment, where each lineup member is compared with the memory. So they look at one person at a time and compare them to their memory. So how can we improve the validity of lineups? What does validity mean, I hear you say? Well, it means accuracy. And I would suspect that after doing 1009 with my ESSA by now, you'd have a pretty good idea what validity means. How can we reduce wrongful identifications? So maybe we need to tell the person, the witness, that the culprit might not be there. It's really important that they know that it's okay to say that they can't see the person. That way they don't have to make a choice if they don't see the person. And Wells tested this in a 1993 study where the lineup had the culprit in there, 21% failed to make the choice. Where the lineup did not have the culprit there, 32% failed to make a choice, but 54% chose someone else as the culprit. So just by telling people that the culprit may not be there means that they have the ability to not do this. Choose someone else. Okay? So, reducing relative similarity effects. Well, what is relative similarity effects? It's where you have people in the lineup who look very similar to the suspect. So Dunning and Stern conducted research where mock witnesses were presented with a videotape stage crime and asked to identify the alleged perpetrator from a photo lineup. Their study involved identifying how the witnesses came to the conclusions that they did. They were asked to state what the cognitive process was. So what were they thinking when they were trying to make this decision. Those that were accurate stated that they just recognised the person quickly, whereas those who were inaccurate came to their conclusion by eliminating people while looking at them. Okay? So a dual lineup is where you have two lineups, and the blank lineup is one where there is no suspect, but that person is in the next lineup. Okay, so you just have two lineups and they have to choose, they have to decide if there's one with nobody in it and pick which one it is. Sequential procedure is where the witness is only shown one person at a time, which can help to eliminate relative similarity, as they won't see more than one person at a time, but that can make it difficult to differentiate. And the show up is more used in the US, and this is where the witness has to identify if a single person is the culprit or not, usually from being shown a single photo. And you'll see that a lot in TV shows, where the police officers will bring a photo up on their phone or whack it out of their pocket and say, is this the person that you saw? Okay, so that's just called the show up, where they're only shown one photo. All right, so 4 general principles when it comes to lineup. The person who conducts the lineup or photo spread should not be aware of who the suspect is, so that they can't inadvertently, by body language or whatever, give away that information to the witness. The eyewitness should be told explicitly that the person administering the lineup does not know which person is the suspect, so the eyewitness needs to know that the person conducting it is not aware. That way then they're not looking to them for confirmation or maybe shaking their head no. They just don't know. They know that that person doesn't know. The suspects should not stand out in the lineup or photo spread as being different from the distractors based on the eyewitness's previous description of the culprit or based on other factors that would draw extra attention to the suspect. So one of the things that could happen there is you could have some people wearing business shirts and then the offender's wearing a polo shirt, or really, really different haircuts. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with having distractors in there that look totally different from the suspect. A clear statement should be taken from the eyewitness at the time of the identification and prior to any feedback as to his or her confidence that the identified person is the actual culprit. So it's not just about identifying someone, but getting a good statement from the witness about everything that happened. Letting them tell their story. Don't ask them closed questions. Let them tell their story. Okay, so today we've learned that eyewitness testimony is a proven source of wrongful convictions. Contrary to common perceptions, a confident witness does not always accurately identify the perpetrator. Studies have shown that memory can be affected by many factors such as later events and questioning style, and there are several best practice suggestions for conducting lineups to reduce false identifications. All right, that's it for the mini lectures. I'll see you in tutorial workshop where we've got some good stuff to get through. We'll have a little bit of fun with it and test your memory and see if you can identify things that change in videos. I'll see you soon.